Okay fellows, welcome to lecture 15 of module 1 in my video series Introduction to Data Structures in C. So in this lecture we'll be looking into 3 demo codes. The first one is to calculate the area of a circle given its radius. In the second code we'll be looking at how to generate a multiplication table for a given number. And in the last program we'll be seeing how to calculate the square root of a given number. Okay, so let's get started. So given the radius of a circle, I would like to calculate its area. And we know that the area of the circle given its radius is nothing but 2 pi r square. Okay, so where pi is the number 3.141 etc. Okay, so this is the formula and we need to implement this equation and calculate the area of the circle. Okay, so given is the code to do so. So first I have my preprocessive directive hash include stdio.h, and then I have two macros defined. Both of them are a constant. Okay, so I use hash define pi 3.14. So pi basically stands for 3.14. That is what I am telling the compiler. And the next macro is also a constant, so then I say quote and then I basically associate this constant quote with a string. Okay, that is done with the calculation. So I have two macros, one is an integer value, other one is a string value. Okay, fine. So coming to the main function, I have defined a variable radius of type integer to store the information or the data or the radius value given by the user. Then basically a message gets printed out using this line, okay, asking the user to input the radius. So the user, having read this message, basically types in the input or the information or the value of the radius, and that value gets read from the standard input device using the scanf as a integer number, and which gets stored into the variable which is been defined out here, which is an integer variable. Don't forget the ampersand sign, okay, associated with the scanner. Having got the radius, now we basically implement our equation 2 pi r square. Okay, so I have 2. I need not type 3.14 here because I know I have already defined a macro saying that what is pi, so that gets substituted out here by default. You need not do that. Okay, and then I have the value of the radius. Okay, so say the user had input 5, so I have 5 into 5 into 3.14 into 2. So that is what the equation boils down to. And the area of the output of this equation gets basically printed out in this position of the printf command. So what you get at the output, say the area of the circle is equivalent to whatever has been calculated at the output of this equation. So that is the message that you get, and after that line, basically in the next line a message again gets printed out, which is nothing but a string done with the calculation, and finally the code gets terminated. So that was all about calculating the area of a circle. So now let's look into how do we generate a multiplication table given an integer. So say I have given integer 5, I need to generate a multiplication table, say 5 into 1 is equal to 5, 5 cross 2 is equal to 10, 5 cross 3 is equal to 15, up to 5 cross 10 is equal to 50. So as you can see out here, this equation is used 10 times. Okay, and the only thing that is changing in this equation is this variable in the second position. So this is where control statements come to our rescue. I need not write these equations 10 times with each of these values. Basically you can use a control statement, say the for loop, in which the counter goes from 1 to 10, and basically that counter variable can be associated with the user defined input of the user to get the output, and these outputs can be later printed out using the printf command. So that was all about the logic of this code. Let's get into the actual implementation. So I have my preprocessor directives, then I have my main function, then I have two variables defined. Okay, one variable to store the input from the user, the other one is the counter variable for a for loop. Okay, then I basically print out a message asking the user to input the number, and once the user types in the number from the keyboard, the scanf function basically uses the number or the variable which has been defined or defined to take the input from the keyboard and dump it into that value, that particular variable. Okay, and don't forget the ampersand sign out there. So having read the number, I go to my next line using the /n. Okay, the special character, you know, the escape character. So /n basically print out a new line. So the user has inputted 5. So having read this, the cursor goes to the next line. Okay, and then I have my for loop. So I have the counter j which goes from 1 to 10, and the increment condition is j plus plus. So j plus plus stands for post increment and can be thought of something like j is equal to j plus 1. So for every iteration of this loop, the variable j starts from 1 and goes up to 10. Okay, so until j is lesser or equal to 10, you keep iterating into the loop. Okay, and out in this loop, this is the body of the loop. I have one command which is the printf, and what do I print out? I print out the output in this format. So n gets printed out there, j which goes from 1 to 10 gets printed out there, and n into j gets printed out there. Say the user has given input 5, so in the first iteration what you get at the output is 5 into 1 is equal to 5. Okay, and this is computed as 5 into 1 using this equation. Okay, and in the second iteration again you go to the next line. Having printed this, you go to the next line with /n, and out there you get 5 into 2 is equal to 10, and in the next iteration 5 into 3 is equal to 15, and so on until j takes the value 10. The moment j becomes 11, you come out of this for loop. So the exit condition is met and you come out of the for loop. Okay, so that was about this piece of code. So hope you have got it. Let's move to the next program, which is calculating the square root of a given number using the square root function. Now, as seen in one of my previous lecture, I have the square root function defined inside the mat.h header file, okay, of the C standard library. So both the hash include stdio.h and the mat.h header files are included out here. Okay, and in the first line of code, I have two variables defined. One is to store the user input, and the other one is to store the value of its square root. Okay, so two floating point variables are being defined out here. Okay, in the next line I basically ask the user for the input, read the input from the keyboard as a floating point number and store it in a floating point variable which is already been defined. Don't forget the ampersand sign. And in the next line I use this square root function which is available because I've included mat.h, pass the number to this function and calculate the root and store it in the variable which has been defined to store the output of this function. So having done that, I print out the function value and its square root in this particular format. Okay, so num gets printed out here and the root value, square root value gets printed out here. Okay, so percentage point to f says that I want to print out whatever has been calculated and the number up to second decimal precision. Suppose the number given was say 3.333. Okay, what gets printed out is just 3.33 up to second decimal precision. Okay, similarly floating point value out here, whatever you have got will again get printed out up to the second decimal precision only. The values beyond that will be ignored. So that is what happens with this line, and next I come to the next line of code, finish off with the function, and the program gets terminated. So thank you fellows for staying with me for this video lecture. Hope that you have enjoyed it, and stay tuned for my next video lecture in this video series. Thank you.